wisdom, and Tim told I had to point out that you have a matching bag to go with that shirt.
Yes.
That is awesome.
Coordinated. Royal purple. Thanks, Tim.
Hey, Brad.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Big crowd. If one or two of you would applaud and run around the room, it'll look like there's a lot more people here. So.
The important ones.
Yes. All right. So I actually have notes. This is the first time I'm doing this presentation on 1 day's notice. I'm a fill-in for Mr. Jim Suff. All right. So hit the thing. So the one thing. How many of you have read Gary Keller's book called The One Thing? Back in the car right now. How many of you at least heard of the book? How many of you are going to go order it after today's talk? That's my one thing that I'm hoping you'll do. So, just a little background first. A couple of weeks ago, my business coach asked me how things are going. I said, things are going great. Business is doubled. I got a lot of irons in the fire. Stuff is really on cruise control. I'm a happy camper. He says, you know what that means? I said, no, but you're about to tell me, right? Coach says, yes, Brett, it's time to do some scary stuff. It's time to get you out of your comfort zone. So my homework assignment was to make a list of all the things that scared the bejesus out of me. Skydiving was one of them. I'm not going to do that one. But some other things on there. One of them was committing to become a one-thing trainer. It's a $5,000 commitment, 3 days in Austin getting trained, etc., etc. And I made the commitment. So I took that step. So I'm challenging you. That's your homework assignment. Go home, make a list of all the stuff that scares the bejesus out of you, and then pick one thing on the list to move you out of your comfort zone and go do that. Another thing that scared the heck out of me was speaking on a topic I've never spoken about on 1 day's notice when I didn't even have the presentation prepared. So yesterday I got the presentation prepared. I called Jennifer and said, yeah, I can speak on the one thing. All right, so one of the quotes that I loved in the very beginning of the book is the following. It's a Russian proverb. If you chase 2 rabbits, you will not catch either one. How many of you spend your day chasing 2 rabbits? You start to do an email, and then that leads you to a YouTube video, and then that takes you over to a website that you want to look at, and then at the end of the day, you wonder, why am I no closer to my goals? Okay? So that was one thing. The second, and I gotta read some of these quotes. Okay, how many of you remember City Slickers? Curly and Mitch having the conversation on the horse. So Curly says, do you know what the secret of life is? Mitch says, no, what? This. What, your finger? No. One thing. Just one thing. You stick to that and everything else don't mean shit. That's great. But what's the one thing? That's what you've got to figure out. So unfortunately, I will not be helping you figure out what your one thing is, but I will hopefully point you in the right direction. Okay, so a couple of things, and by the way, obviously in a 15, 20-minute presentation, I cannot cover the whole book, so I'm going to give you a couple little pieces. So how many of you have heard of the Pareto principle? Raise your hand if you've heard of the Pareto. You might want to... Hello? Is this mic on? Pareto principle. Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist, and around the 1890s, early 1900s, he did a study of the distribution of wealth in Italy. And he found that 80% of the wealth was concentrated in the hands of 20% of the people. So how many of you have heard of the 80-20 rule? More hands? Yes, a lot more hands. By the way, I can see you in the back. So you guys back there, just be warned. All right, so there, the hand just went up. Thank you. So many of you have heard of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the breakdowns of a piece of machinery come from 20% of the parts. How many of you have this experience? 80% of your headaches come from 20% of your clients. Who's got some clients like that? Okay, a lot of people, a lot of hands went up. Okay, 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. There are a few things that if you focus on them, you're going to have massive results. And then everything else takes a really long time to get that last little bit done. Let's take that concept one step further, which they do in the book. Let's say you have 25 things on your to-do list. How many of you have a to-do list with 25 things on it? How many of you have a to-do list at all? Okay. All right, so your to-do list, maybe it's, I gotta send out 25 emails, or I need to make 25 recruiting calls, or I need to knock on 25 doors, or whatever it is. If you apply the 80-20 rule and figure out of those 25 things on my to-do list, what's 20% of 25? Thank you, winner, Brian Carl, VA all day. Yeah, there we go. All right, so of those 25 items on your list, 5 are going to produce 80% of the results. Well, what if you did the 80-20 on the 5? What's 20% of 5? 1. Figure out the one thing. 80% of 80% is 64%, which means one thing on that list of 25 is going to produce almost 2/3 of your results for the day. Can you imagine how much faster you're going to get through your day if you did that? Can you imagine how much less stress you would have if you started focusing on that one thing out of the 25 that gives you 2/3 of your results? 80 times 80, by the way, or 0.8 times 0.8, that's where I got the 64%. It's just math. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Is it helpful?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Will. At least one of you is still awake in the back there. All right, so keep that in mind. That is the 80-20 rule. By the way, the 80-20 rule is one of the 6 lies that stands between you and success. There's actually 6 lies in the book, and one of them is the 80-20 rule. What they call it is everything matters equally. That's the lie. We treat the day as if everything mattered equally, but it doesn't. So you apply the 80-20 rule, and you'll start to get more results. I want to back up, because I jumped ahead. It would be helpful if I actually read my notes and followed it. But there's something in the book called the domino effect. This is another thing I want to bring to your attention. One domino can knock over another domino that is 50% larger. How many of you knew that fact? A couple of you probably read the book. So they did some research and they found that one domino, a 2-inch domino, when you tap it, can actually knock over a 3-inch domino, 50% bigger. And that 3-inch domino can knock over a 4.5-inch domino, and so on and so on. This is called a geometric progression. So let me read this to you. Yes, glasses. I'm prepared. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, do you see the implication? No one can knock over others, but others that are successful. Not only can one knock over others, but also others that are successively larger. In 2001, a physicist from San Francisco's Exploratorium reproduced Whitehead's experiment by creating 8 dominoes out of plywood, each of which was 50% larger than the one before. The first was a mere 2 inches. The last, almost 3 feet tall. 2 inches, 3 feet, hit the first one, it knocked over the bigger one. Imagine what would happen if you kept this going. If a regular domino falls, it's a linear progression. Whitehead's would be described as a geometric progression. The result would defy the imagination. The 10th domino would be almost as tall as NFL quarterback Peyton Manning. By the 18th, you're looking at a domino that would rival the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The 23rd domino would tower over the Eiffel Tower, and the 31st domino would loom over Mount Everest by almost 3,000 feet. The 57th one would bridge the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Do you get the implication here? If you can figure out the first domino, and you can start knocking over all these other dominoes, you can get a lot more done than you're currently getting done in your life. Is that good? You like it? Brian likes it.
Terrific.
All right. Okay, another one of the lies. How many of you multitask? How many of you think you're more efficient when you do that? Yeah, you used to, thank God. All of the research, not some, all of the research actually proves that you are inefficient when it comes to multitasking. Here's an experiment. Everybody get a pen and a piece of paper. This is a timed exercise. I want everybody to do this. When I say go, I want you to write down the letters of the alphabet from A through Z and the numbers from 1 to 27. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 27. Everybody got that? Pretty easy. write them down, the letters of the alphabet, A to Z, numbers 1 through 27, and then when you're done, raise your hand, because I got to see who the first person is and the last person, because I'm timing this. All right, I'm going to give you 3 more seconds, so get ready and go. Just raise your hand when you're done. Your hand going up. Yes. Okay, keep going, keep going. I got the first one. I want to see when the last person's done. There's another. Another, couple more in the back. Okay, first hand went up at 25 seconds. Last one was around 40. All right, now, you're going to do almost the same thing, only this time you're going to write 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. You're going to switch from number to letter, number to letter, number to letter. Okay? Again, raise your hand as soon as you are done. Ready? Go. Person, where are you? Yeah, boom. Okay. First person on that one was 35 seconds. Almost equal to the slowest person on the first one. So does everybody get the point? Generally speaking, almost every one of you was a lot slower. Did you notice that you were a lot slower going back and forth? That's called task switching. And there is a lot of evidence that shows when you switch tasks, you lose time. In fact, it's estimated that about 28% of your workday is lost to this switching effect. That's about 2 hours out of an 8-hour day. Yeah?
But I really didn't switch it. I wrote the numbers first and I wrote the alphabets next to after I was done.
That was not what I asked you to do.
No, but it was still 1A and 2B.
But you had to write 1 and A and 2 and B. Okay, so even the 35 seconds was a little bit cheating
No,
there.
but I achieved exact same result without.
Right, but you didn't. Okay, but the point is, the switching back and forth, your brain needs time to recoup and to process and to get back into gear. So when you're multitasking, you're not as efficient as you may think you are. Wanted to read very quickly. Let's see how much. Okay, you got a little bit of time. Plenty of time. Okay. Here's what I wanted to read about the cost in terms of extra time from having to switch tasks depends on how complex or simple the tasks are, reports researcher Dr. David Meyer. It can range from time increases of 25% or less for simple tasks to well over 100% or more for very complicated tasks. Task switching exacts a cost few realize they're even paying. Okay? And then on page 50, this one, 50 here, this, you're going to not like this one. Driven to Distraction, 2009 article by a guy named Mac Richtel. He said he found that distracted driving is responsible for 16% of all traffic fatalities and nearly 500,000 injuries annually. Even an idle phone conversation when driving takes a 40% bite out of your focus and surprisingly can have the same effect as being drunk. The evidence is so compelling that many states and municipalities have outlawed cell phone use while driving, and especially texting. Yes? You guys got that? Do not mess with your phone in the car. Put it in the glove compartment, lock the glove compartment, and don't take it out until you get to your destination. All right, so those, again, those were 2 of the 6 lies. Everything matters equally and multitasking. Those are lies. And the book goes into much greater detail. Obviously, you can't do it all for you in just this one little presentation. All right, so here's a little bit of help. It's called the focusing question. So let me read you this quote. Here's a quote, page 104, in case you get to that in the book. Anybody a little more interested in getting the book now? Okay, got a few head shaking. Okay. Life is a question. It says answers come from questions, and the quality of any answer is directly determined by the quality of the question. Okay? Voltaire once said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. And there's a bunch of other quotes. So the idea is to come up with a really good question to ask yourself. Here's what they call the focusing question. And they go into this in great detail in the book, but I can only do this very quickly. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do? What's the one thing I can do when I leave this meeting? What's the one thing I can do when I get back to the office? What's the one thing I can do as soon as Brad is done talking, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Say what? Focus. But you got to get even more specific. You got to pick something to do. Okay? So some examples. Let's see what they gave here. Let me find some of my examples. Okay. Page 109. Here we go. It says, everything else will be easier or unnecessary is the ultimate leverage test. It tells you when you found the first domino. It says that when you do this one thing, everything else you could do to accomplish your goal will now be either doable with less effort or no longer even necessary. So, I'll give you an example. Somebody says, I want to lose 12 pounds in the year. That's like 3 pounds a quarter, 1 pound a month. What's that, 4 ounces a week? But still, that person, do you think they're still going to lose the weight? No. But what's one thing that they could do right now in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes that would get them closer to losing the 4 ounces? Give me an example. Do what?
Put the donut down.
Put the donut down. Put the half a banana full of carbs down. Stop drinking the orange juice. Put it down. That's one thing they could do right now that would get them closer to the 4 ounces, which gets them closer to the pound, which gets them closer to the 3 pounds, which gets them closer to the 12 for the year, the big goal. How many of you have goals, by the way? Okay, great. How many of you have them written down? Great, a lot more hands going up, yeah. How many of you have broken them down into quarter and month? Not as many hands, you gotta go home and work on that. And how many of you have a written plan of action for getting to those goals? 5 hands out of 40 in the room. 6. Thanks, Brian. So go home and write out the plan. All right, last thing that I can do here. It's called goal setting to the now. And I think I just gave you a little bit of an example there. So the way they word it in the book. Okay, so here it is. It says goal setting to the now. Your someday goal. What's the one thing I want to do someday? Somebody give me an example. What's like a really big, like a 10 or a 15-year goal that you might have?
Jump out of a plane.
Jump out of an airplane. Okay.
With a big swim.
Okay. So yeah, maybe it's a retirement goal. Anybody here have a retirement goal at some point down the road? 10, 15, 20. Okay, so that's your really big someday goal. Then it says break it down into 5 years. And based on the someday goal, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years? Based on that, what's the one thing I can do this year? What's the one thing I can do this month? What's the one thing I can do this week? What's the one thing I can do today? And what's the one thing I can do right now? Like I said, for some of you, I don't mind if you're on your phones. I know you're multitasking and you think you're more efficient, but you're not. But I don't mind if you're actually going to Amazon and ordering the book right now. I don't get paid, I don't get a commission, but that's one thing you could do right now to get the book. Now somebody says, oh, I'll never read it. Great, what's the one thing you do when the book arrives in the mail? Put it, do what, Tim? Take it out of the box, unwrap it, and put it on the nightstand. But now you haven't read it. It's on ours is on the nightstand, but she hasn't read it. All right, but you're getting closer. That's the point of this whole thing. That's the whole point. Find that one thing. I'll give you another example from my life. One thing I decided that I needed to do is to speak nationally. So I applied to NAR for the conference in San Diego. Anybody going to the conference in San Diego? NAR conference? A few of you? NAR conference in San Diego is the, 13th to the 16th, something like that, of November. It's close, it's in San Diego. And so I decided, one thing that would propel my career, probably more than anything, is to be on the stage at NAR doing a workshop. And fingers crossed, I just spoke to Roz at National Headquarters. I haven't been selected, but I haven't been unselected. They're still looking at my proposal. So hopefully next week or 2 weeks I can come back and tell you, yes, I'm a speaker at NAR. But that one thing could do more for my career than 15 or 20 or 30 other things that I'm doing right now. Whoop. And there is the beeper telling me I'm out of time. So how many of you got at least one thing out of today's presentation that you could use? Fantastic, thank you, thank you. Last quick announcement as they yank the phone, yank the mic out of my hand. Jennifer House at Keller Williams in Livermore has graciously agreed to work with me to put on the workshop. Now I can't put it on until I'm certified, which will be November 13th. So we're looking at possibly mid-December, before the Christmas craziness sets in, maybe early January, putting on a one-thing workshop. It's a full day. It takes everything in the book, does a lot more than what I was able to do in 20 minutes. But imagine immersing yourself for 8 hours in this material with other people in the room and actually writing out and doing some of the activities. If you are interested in finding out about that workshop, please give me a business card, put the number 1 on it so I know what it's about. Just give me your business card and we'll contact you when we schedule the date and set the price and have it all ready. And then, of course, you don't have to register then unless you want to. But at least if you're interested, we'd like to find that out. And if you are interested in having me come into your office, if you've got enough people, and I'll discuss with you what the minimum number is for that, please see me, give me your card, put 1 on there, and I'll contact you about that. And I can come into your office and do it just for your entire office of people. So again, thank you guys very much. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys got something out of it. Have a great day.